Hi all. Today we'll be learning a bit more about Venn diagram, which was discussed in the modules in the second week on IFU data. So today's presentation is based on the paper, A Comprehensive Classification of Galaxies in the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, How to Tell True from Fake AGN by R. Sid Fernandez et al. So simply put, Venn diagram is a method to provide emission layer classification for galaxies. So before we head on to how Venn diagram helps in emission layer classification of galaxies, let's try to understand what is classification and why do we classify things in the first place. So classification can be defined as a systematic arrangement of objects in groups or categories according to established criteria. Let's try to understand with this an example of a library. Imagine that you're a librarian and in your library at the moment there are only 10 books. So when there are only 10 books, it's uh, easier for if somebody comes to you and asks for a book, then it's easier for you to find the book and give it out to them. But now if your library has say 1,000 books, you can't always search through the 1,000 books and find the book. So you decide to solve this problem by listing the books in a book in another book with you're assigning one number to each book so that you can uniquely identify each book, and you have like, put these sort of numbers in your shelves also, so you can correlate between okay, this number corresponds to this book. But again, you'll find this problematic because every time somebody comes for a book, you'll have to go through the list if you're doing it manually and find the number, then you have to go and find the shelf which it has it. So this like putting it into like putting numbers and identifying books using numbers won't help you. So the solution that you resort to follow is to divide it based on genre. So the criteria you're gonna divide your books based on what genre you find the books to be from. So you put them into like classes like horror, non-fiction, comedy, poetry, fantasy, and what you find is this makes the task a bit easier because now since they are classified, you know that if you have to find a particular book, if you find the genre, the number of books that you have to go through is like, reduced to a large extent. So you see that classifying primarily makes a distribution of something more accessible. Then this other feature that we can understand from this same example of library is when we look at a particular class, say here a particular genre, we'll see that there'll be some common trends between the objects in a particular class. And we know that it will be exclusive if we look at two classes, we can differentiate between them based on the common trends that we found within the class. For example, we know that we won't find facts in a fantasy book, we won't find stories in a poetry book. So, likewise, uh, having a good classification scheme, we can find more common trends and mutual exclusion between objects in a particular class. So let's try to summarize this understanding of classification. We see that a good classification scheme makes the distribution of something more accessible, which we understood from the library example. And we see that we can have many ways to classify a distribution of something, and not all of them would be good. So a good classification scheme should include all the objects in the within the distribution. Shouldn't leave out any object. Then a good classification scheme brings out common features within the class objects. This is important because it will help us understand the class and the class properties a bit more, and if there are more common features, then we understand that the criteria that we use to separate and classify these objects is more fundamental. And a classification scheme, the criteria should be objective. So if it is objective enough, then it will be easy to add any new object into the predefined classes that we created based on the criteria. So whenever we look at a classification, we have to remember these points. Now let's move a bit closer to the topic uh, at hand, and let's look at an example of classification in astronomy. So one classification that we are familiar in astronomy is Hubble's morphology classification and the Hubble's tuning fork. So the morphology classification is a visual classification. We divide galaxies into classes based on the visual appearance. So basically they are elliptical, lenticular, bards, barred spirals, normal spirals, irregular, etc. So we see that this allows us to like access and understand more about a particular class of objects better. So imagine you want to do research on all the elliptical galaxies. So if your data is classified based on morphology, then you can just filter all the other galaxies out and choose the elliptical galaxies alone. Which this would make your research a bit more easier. So as mentioned in the previous section, that a good classification scheme makes data more accessible. And we see that when we look at the morphology, there's also some common trends within the class. For example, elliptical galaxies are really seen to be more redder and to be hosting more low mass stars, whereas older stars, and whereas we see that spirals are more seen to be hosting young high mass stars. So a good classification scheme, as said before, brings out more common trends within the class. So after Hubble's work, it was modified and expanded upon by Gerald D. Wachola, and he saw the morphology, galaxy morphology, as a more continuous distribution, and he introduced more intermediate classes to include all objects and uniquely identify them. So basically, having a good classification scheme and uh, being able to add more and more sources and identifying basically is for all the points that we discussed earlier when we understood the very fundamental points of why classification is important. Now we know that in astronomy, imaging is not the only method that we use to understand about them, like understand about galaxies or any uh, astronomical source. After imaging, there is also spectroscopy. So now there's data in imaging, same there's also bulk large amount of data in uh, spectroscopy. So there will be like lots of galaxies similar to we have images of lots of galaxies, we'll have spectrums of all the galaxies also. So now if we want to understand spectrum of a galaxy better, it's always like same as all the other examples before, it's better to put them into classes. So we know that like what we can observe from a spectrum are emission lines and absorption lines and redshift, so all these parameters. So choosing the first like one way to classify galaxy is based on their emission lines, and it is found that different classes of galaxies, certain which we see, have different sets of emission lines, and to it's when we put them into different classes, we can understand basically what are the physical processes which cause galaxies to produce those emission lines, and if the classification scheme is good enough, then we can understand more about the objects within the class based on their emission lines. So yeah, so emission line classifications are one of the most easiest to carry out because all we have to measure is the emission line intensities. And okay, a bit further step would be to measure the equivalent width of the emission lines. And just by doing the simple measurement, we can have information such as what is this, there is star formation, what is the nuclear composition, what is the composition, chemical composition of the galaxy, and if there is nuclear activity or not. We can understand like all of this like information from looking at the spectrum of the galaxies. And if you know a bit more about quasars, then when we look at how the spectrum varies. If the spectrum, the absorption or emission, the absorption is very broader, then it could have a different physical cause. Or if it's very narrow, then it could be from a physical cause. Basically, looking at the spectrum and classifying these emission lines could give us a lot of information. So now that it's set, like why do we need to do classification? Like why do we classify things, and how we reach this point where we are classifying emission lines of galaxies. Now let's try to understand how Venn diagram, uh, like what mechanism or what method uh, Venn diagram employs to do this emission line classification. So Venn, it stands for width of H alpha versus N2 by H alpha, and N2 is a forbidden line, that's why it's in square brackets. And you'd be familiar with this ratio because you would have used this in N2 gas phase metallicity. So as any good classification scheme, the objective of Venn diagram is also to classify emission length of galaxies into smaller fixed classes without leaving any other objects aside. And from the modules, you would already know the criteria on the basis of which Venn diagram puts emission lines into different classes. So the main emission lines that we're using is the N2 line and the H alpha line, and the other aspect of the emission line which we're using is the width of these emission lines. So we see that the galaxies are classified into five classes: pure star forming galaxies, strong AGN, weak AGN, RG, and passive galaxies. So the now the need to understand why these particular lines, and how it benefits us from other already existing emission line classification scheme, so which we'll actually come back a bit later. So Venn diagram uses width of H alpha line and N2 by H alpha, where width of H alpha measures the amount of ionizing photons absorbed by the gas related to its stellar mass, whereas the N2 ratio, it is a function of nitrogen abundance. So it tells us it gives us information about the ionization state of the gas and the temperature of gas. And we'll see that H alpha and N2 are one of the strongest lines in the strongest emission lines in the spectrum, and the measurement of the width of emission line is a more direct and more appropriate measurement, because the quality of your uh, measurement depends on like which all spectral lines you were able to pick up. Like it depends on your system sensitivity, but the width of an emission line is a more direct measurement, so uh, less it is less explicitly dependent on the quality of the data. So it's better to use classification schemes which use width of an emission line than the strength. So Venn diagram, it is not the first emission line classification scheme. As a matter of fact, it's pretty recent. So one of the oldest and most used and well understood emission line classification scheme is the BPT diagram. It's by Baldwin, Phillips, and Televic, and it was the classification scheme came out I think around 1981. So this particular this PPT diagram that you see, you would have seen this in your modules also. So this is Marvin's BPT diagram, and if you look closely at the uh, PPT diagrams in your screen, there are actually three sets. So you'll see that any particular one diagram, any plot would require at least four sets of lines. So here we have N2H, N2H alpha, O3 HP10, leftmost, and middle we have S2H alpha, and rightmost we have O1 and H alpha. So at any point, any particular classification would require at least detection of four lines. So now we need to understand, okay, there's been a classification scheme since so long, so what is the need of a new classification system, like classification scheme? So if we, as I said, BPT diagram, we need at least four lines to classify an galaxy based on its emission length. So if any of the four, any like one of the four emission lines, if it doesn't make the zero point 0.5 angstrom uh, line width cutoff, then it would it won't we won't be able to classify that particular galaxy. So all the galaxies which don't make this cut of 0.5 angstrom would be left unclassified. So this requirement of having the need of having to find the to detect for at least four emission lines ends up leaving large number of emission line galaxies unclassified. So this is where Venn diagram is better because we only have to detect two lines, and since N2 and HL1 are the strongest lines, and all the others will be obviously will be weaker than this. So it's the most economic combination is to use width of H alpha versus N2 by H alpha. So this is one way how Venn diagram is better than VPT classification. And if you see that there's an emission line classification, and one thing you would see that there is no like this doesn't include galaxies which are which don't have emission lines, but whereas in the scheme we saw that Venn diagram has a way to include passive galaxies which are actually lineless galaxies. So when we include lineless galaxies in a emission line classification scheme, we are actually including all the sources. So as stated before, a good classification scheme should include all the sources in the distribution and shouldn't leave out any, because to understand what fraction of galaxies are lineless is also important in understanding the overall distribution of sources. So the Venn diagram is better than VPT diagram in a way because it includes passive galaxies as well, and it helps us get a complete picture about the distribution of sources in the sky. So this is the Venn diagram. So this is different from the Venn map that you plotted in the module. So that was spatially resolved Venn map. So this is one diagram where each point that you see in the plot is one galaxy. So you're classifying the galaxy as a whole into these classes. So it is different from the IFU one map because there you're classifying each pixel into these emission line classes. So you classified them based on these log N2 by H alpha values. So you'll be familiar with this because you did in the exercise. So after this, we'll try to understand what is the significance of these values on the basis of which we put them into these classes, and how do we justify it. So first, looking at pure star forming and strong AGN, the vertical line at log N2 by H alpha equals to minus 0.4. This particular line, this corresponds to the distinction, like the differentiation between star forming and AGN, like Seyfert. So this is based on BPT based classification. It's adapted from the BPT based classification where we use log N2 by H alpha line. And in this particular case, what we're looking for is whether the emission lights that we are seeing in the spectrum are due to star formation or AGN activity. So in star formation, we don't expect as much harder ionizing spectrum as if it is from AGN. And we know that in case of star forming regions, H alpha emission is a signature emission line, and we see that if a particular region of a galaxy is emitting strongly in H alpha, we can say that this region might have H alpha emission. But now we know that the H alpha emission could also be because of AGN activity. So in star forming region, the H alpha emission is due to photoionization by OB type stars. So the OB type stars photoionize the interstellar medium, causing hydrogen in the interstellar medium to be ionized, and these H alpha emission we pick up. But whereas this is not the same as the case in, not the same in the case of agents. So this distinction at log n2 by h alpha at minus 0.4 tells us that whether the uh, spectral length, the emission lengths that we're seeing are due to star formation or agent activity. So this is another way to explain this is when we look at, as explained before, the log n2 by h alpha is a measure of nitrogen abundance and temperature. So this value of this particular factor will be greater for agents. So that justifies like why at a later stage at and log n2 by h alpha is larger for agents and it will be smaller for star forming agents. Now, looking at weak agents and retired galaxies, this is actually an important distinction because weak agents can be misclassified into retired galaxies and vice versa. It's because their emission lengths are very similar. Weak agents are basically agents which the emissions are the spectra is not as strong enough to be classified as strong agent. So and weak agent. But RGs are galaxies where the emission is due to photoionization by hot low mass evolved stars. So they could mimic as weak agent, but because of their emission, but the emission is actually because of photoionization by hot low mass evolved stars. Which are, hot low mass evolved stars are also called as HOMES in most literature. So this distinction is important because these two are could be at the stellar populations are at different evolutionary stage, and so if we misclassify them, we are actually putting them in different parts of the galaxy evolution. So one way to make the distinction between weak agents and retired galaxies is using Z. So this factor is equal to the thus the extinction corrected H alpha intrinsic H alpha luminosity divided by the H alpha luminosity expected from stellar population which are older than 10 to the power 8 years. So from like simply looking at the definition of this factor Z, you can understand that for if the emission is from stellar population which are 10, more than older than 10 to the power 8 years, that means if the stellar population, the luminosity is from sources which are older than 10 to the 8 years, then the denominator will be high. But if it is not, then the numerator will be high. So that way we can say that we can make a distinction based on Z. So now the question is, how do we use it in our context? Because how do we relate Z to some factor that we have? So for this, let's look at a plot of Z versus log n2 by h alpha and width of h alpha versus log n2 by h alpha. And we see that the plots look very similar. The reason why they look similar can be understood if we simply look at the uh, equation for the definition of width of h alpha in terms of luminosities. So we see that the width of h alpha is observed h alpha luminosity divided by the continuum luminosity around h alpha. So apart from the extinction correction part, the numerators of both z and width of h alpha are similar. And the literature in the paper also discusses in detail like the physical aspects behind these, like why they are similar and why the plot looks identical. Now the important factor is when we plot the number density versus log z, we see that the plot looks bimodal. That means the there are two different population of sources which are undergoing different physical processes which are giving out these uh, resulting in this bimodality. So so the bimodality is based on log z. So what the authors did is they plotted sources denoted. If you look at the plot x, the plot b, it is given as x8 less than 10%. Basically what it means is only they have removed only 10% of the sources have of the galaxy. Only 10% is less than 10% is contributing to stellar population which are younger than 10 to the power 8 years. So basically what they are saying is the population is dominated by older stars. So when So this is important to understand. I'll say that again. So X8 less than 10% means that less than 10% of the source have are yeah contribute to less than 10% contribute to uh, like stellar population which is younger than 10 to 8 years. So the opposite for C, so where we look at the uh, sources which have all the four lines, that means a harder ionizing spectrum is there. So that's why we are able to see four lines. And we solve this bimodality. And we see that this bimodality comes about at 3 angstrom. So in the paper they have justified this 3 angstrom, and they did different experiments to fix this value, and most of them are around 3 angstrom. So authors fixed at 3 angstrom to differentiate between uh, VKGNs and RGs. Now, coming to passive galaxies, it's as like explained before, passive galaxies are lineless galaxies, and so the galaxies whose both N2 and H alpha width falls below this zero point 0.5 angstrom cutoff, they are put into this PG, and this inclusion of this makes the uh, picture complete because we will know what fraction of galaxies are lineless. So the inclusion of passive galaxies, the lineless galaxies in emission line classification is something better than the previously existing BPT based classification. So that covers, I think, all the classes and the uh, WAN classification. Now, let's look at few other aspects of WAN classification. Can be said as few disadvantages, that this division into AGN and weak categories based on width of H alpha is somewhat aperture dependent. So, based on what aperture you use, the strong AGN can be diluted into weak AGN, because if we sample more stellar continuum, the what the it could become diluted. And this width of H alpha less than 3 angstrom criterion slightly modifies the ideal definition of RGs, because this is purely based on observational fact, like how we chose 3 angstrom. So similar to previous case, if we sample more of the stellar spectrum, it is again aperture dependent, whether if we there's a high chance that we can misclassify into VKG, and again depending on the aperture. So that's I think it can be, it is something which can be overcome, but at the moment it can be seen as a disadvantage which comes with this Venn diagram, which is not there in BPT classification because it's independent of width of H alpha. So I think that basically covers about what is Venn diagram and the physical reasoning behind how we chose the different values for putting them into different classes, and how putting them into different classes helps us, and what different physical processes are captured in different classes. And this is the IFU Venn diagram that you must have plotted in your modules, and you see that it's different from the Venn diagram that we discussed in the presentation. So this actually highlights one more aspect, that with IFU, and we can do this spatially resolved emission line classification. That means we can see that what physical process is going in different uh, position, like different parts and different components of the galaxies. So with combination of IFU technology and uh, better emission line classification schemes like Venn diagram, it's we can understand a lot more about galaxies than which was accessible before. So I think with that I finish my presentation. The participants are welcome to ask any doubts about this session in the discussion or in the next live class. Thank you.